Hello, Thrive Nation. It's all about metabolism today. And I've got one of the heroes of heroes. He's an author, podcaster, 4 times best-selling author, actually. And he's just released a new book that has gone live in May called Metabolic Freedom. And it's just an absolute privilege to have Ben Azadi on the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Steve. I'm grateful to be here with you. Love the work you're doing in Africa and also across the world. And it's going to be a fun conversation. Let's go.
Absolutely. I want you to break the dogmas first about metabolism, because I think I've been in practice 26 years, done over 140,000 treatments, and people have just got
Wow.
this dogma. It's set in, oh, my metabolism every decade after the age of 30 gets slower and slower. So let's start there, and then we'll get into your backstory from pain to purpose, which is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Wow. It's quite the experience. It's amazing, Steve. I would say I hear that excuse a lot. A lot of people use their age as a reason to why their metabolism is slowing down, and I'm putting that in quotation marks for those listening. And the reason why they're gaining weight, having trouble losing weight, oh, it's just my age, Steve. Hit 40 years old or 50 years old or 60 years old, and there's nothing I can do. It just happens with age. Well, when I wrote Metabolic Freedom, as you referenced, it just came out. And by the way, we just hit the New York Times bestseller list. I just
Yes,
found out
come
that
on.
it was just amazing. So freaking cool
Yeah.
to see that, because it means the message is getting to the masses, which is so important. But when I was researching for the book and I was researching the metabolism, I found a really interesting study. This is probably the most comprehensive study that I've seen on the metabolism. It was from Duke University and it was published in 2021. And the study was a worldwide study. It actually involved several countries, not just the US, but many countries. And it also involved 6,600 people from age 1 to age 95 and everybody in between. And they used the gold standard of testing metabolism. It was a special urine test to see what changes happen in the metabolism as somebody ages and progresses through their lifespan. And the study showed that between the ages of 20 years old and 60 years old, there are no significant changes in the metabolism whatsoever. So that excuse that you hit 50 and that's why your metabolism is slowing down, well, the studies show that doesn't actually happen. The study also said that once the person reaches age 60, they notice a 0.7% decline in the metabolism every year after age 60. But here's the reason why that happens: loss of muscle mass.
Yeah.
Which means if you build lean muscle mass in your 30s, 40s, 50s, or if you're over 60 and you start building lean muscle mass, you could be 95 years old with the same metabolism as when you were 25 years old. That's super cool. That's why dietary protein is very important. Strength training is very important. Sleep and recovery is very important. And it's interesting because so many people want to boost their metabolism. They want a fast metabolism. That's not the goal. The metabolism is not running in speeds. It's either efficient or it is inefficient. And animals in the wildlife, Steve, that have the fastest metabolism have the shortest lifespan. It's not about fast metabolism. It's not about slow metabolism. It's about what is interfering with the metabolism. Remove that interference, then it becomes efficient no matter what your age is.
Sure. And I mean, this is really powerful. I mean, I know it's in your book. You've mentioned it before when I've listened to you, and we'll put links to your Instagram. Incredible. Well done. I just love your content, and on LinkedIn as well.
Thank
But
you.
how do they measure metabolism? Because someone's listening out there saying, oh, but you don't understand. I've got Hashimoto's thyroiditis. My thyroid's not working. Is it a factor of mitochondrial efficiency, or how do they measure this metabolism?
There are a few ways to measure it. I mean, you could pay attention to your symptoms. Your symptoms are always the first thing, the first clues that will happen. The body's always communicating to us through symptoms. It's the body's check engine light. Symptoms are not bad. Symptoms are really, actually, we should be thankful for them. It's the way that God designed the body to show you a check engine light, a symptom, which is showing you something you're eating, something you're thinking, something in your lifestyle is interfering with the metabolism. A symptom will manifest. And they're really subtle in the beginning. Maybe it's like afternoon fatigue or tired after eating a meal or poor sleep, joint pain. And then it progresses, as you mentioned, to like Hashimoto's, thyroiditis, other serious conditions, high blood pressure, diabetes. But it'll start off really slow. That's a sign that your metabolism is off. And yeah, the mitochondria, to your point, are directly linked because every cell, with the exception of red blood cells, have these little battery packs called the mitochondria that are it's taking these substrates. It's taking protein or fat or carbohydrates or body fat or sunlight, and it's using that for energy and fat burning. And when the mitochondria are not functioning properly because they've been interfered with, we're not producing energy. We're storing fat. We're creating inflammation, oxidative stress. Then symptoms manifest. So that's like a free way to understand if you're how to test metabolism. Now you could go a little bit further and do advanced testing like you've done. You could look at your inflammatory markers. C-reactive protein is a really good one. High sensitivity C-reactive protein is a really good one. I would argue that the best marker, a blood test for your metabolism and your overall health and longevity is actually a fasting insulin test. Insulin, as we know, is a hormone. It's an energy sensor. When it's signaled, it tells the metabolism store energy, store fat. Let's pack the energy into our fat cells. Let's drive the glucose into the fat cells. And when it's elevated chronically, we interfere with the metabolism. And what's really interesting, there's a study I put in Metabolic Freedom from it was called the Whitehall Study 2, and it showed that you could have full-blown insulin resistance, hyperinsulinemia for 6 to 14 years without your blood sugars changing. So if you're only getting a fasting blood sugar or an A1C, which are great tests, get those, but you're not getting a fasting insulin, you're missing the point. If your fasting insulin is over 6, that is showing you there's metabolic dysfunction. I want to see mine usually 3.2, 3.3. It shows sensitive levels of insulin. So that is probably the best way to know if your metabolism is working or if there's interference.
Absolutely. And, fasting insulin, many years, 15 years ago, the optimal ranges are very important. We've been keeping our patients between 3 and 5, having done functional diagnostic testing for many years. And it goes the same with thyroid, TSH, T4, T3. It's an optimal range that is crucially important. But listen to that, anything from 6 to 14 years, to all my corporates that are listening out there, my business leaders, there's a big reason that we do fasting insulin, and you need to educate your doctor. This is crucially important because we can prevent diabetes and pre-diabetes if we catch it at the insulin resistance stage. So well done to you. That first study, have you got it on your social? Is it on your website? Is it easily accessible? Because I think this is fundamentally important to break this dogma of metabolism.
The Duke University study on the metabolism, it's in the book. But if you do a Google search, type in Ponsner, Duke University 2021 metabolism study, it'll be the first thing that pops up. Anybody could do that right now. Just go on Google, Ponsner, Duke University 2021 study on the metabolism, and you could read it right now.
Because I think it's so important, like you said, the most important test. I've done a lot of corporate work that keynotes hundreds of people yesterday. They don't know about fasting insulin.
It's true,
many of
bro.
them, they do all these tests, the glucose, HbA1c, 3-month glucose, yet they don't know about fasting insulin. And I think crucially important. And hyperinsulinemia, what in terms of cancer, in terms of cardiovascular disease, in terms of neurodegenerative conditions, give us your experience and what you found with high levels of insulin in the body.
It's the first domino to fall. It'll lead to all those things you mentioned and a lot more, because it's a energy sensor. It's a growth factor. Insulin is, and it tells everything to grow, including precancerous cells and precancerous cells. So when you have high levels of insulin over the years, because you're not testing it, unfortunately, most people don't test it. And the reason why most conventional doctors don't test a fasting blood insulin is because there's not a medication for high levels of insulin. There's medications for high levels of blood sugar, but not insulin. So why should they test it? But you should test it, to your point and to my point here. When you have high levels of insulin, it'll trigger high blood pressure, weight gain, weight loss resistance, and eventually it could lead to heart disease, cancer. And once you're diagnosed with diabetes, for example, which is a huge epidemic across the world, it opens up the door for all of these metabolic conditions, the heart disease and the cancer, which are the two top killers around the world. Diabetes is a big issue, and it's 100% preventable, as you mentioned, type 2, and it's 100% reversible. And here in the United States, we spend $4.6 trillion on healthcare every single year. Yet we are sicker than ever before, and pharmaceutical companies are richer than ever before. And if that was a GDP, $4.6 trillion, if that was a GDP, that would be the fourth largest GDP in the entire world. And 1 out of every $4 spent on healthcare is spent on diabetes, primarily type 2. And the interesting thing about diabetes, like I saw my dad, he and I dedicated the book to my dad. He passed away from the complications of diabetes back in 2014. I saw this happen to him, and he got worse year after year. And what I discovered is that he didn't die from diabetes. He died with diabetes. It's pretty rare to die from diabetes. You die with diabetes. It leads to the cancer. It leads to the heart disease, the stroke, which happened to my dad, the amputations. Here in the US, there are 38 diabetic amputations about every single minute in the United States. It's insane.
Wow.
But you could find out if you're on that path to diabetes by testing a fasting insulin. You want to get it between 3 and 5, like you mentioned. That is a great mark. If your fasting insulin was between 3 and 5, you would never be diagnosed with prediabetes or diabetes. It is such an important marker to get done.
Yeah, well said. And we're going to really try and get this banner of testing insulin and getting it in the right optimal ranges. And that's, I think, key if anyone's listening out there. But I do want to talk about technology. I've been in medicine 26 years. People come, they have a diagnosis. I work with health coaches. We run a big team here. They're putting things in place. 6 months later, they're doing well. A year later, I see them. They're back to their old ways. They've regained the weight. And yes, some of them have done the Keto Flex, and some of them have done the No Grain Brain by Perlmutter, and some of them have done, the Dave Asprey or the Brian Johnson. But I'm a believer in, and maybe give me your perspective, that technology, the use of CGMs, the use of smartwatches, the use of influencers like yourself saying, get a CGM that's going to connect to your watch. When that watch beeps, don't wait for your doctor to say, oh, well, we're going to test for insulin. Get onto a forum, get onto Ben Azadi's Facebook group, go and ask people, connect with a community that wants to see you well, because it's in their best interest that everybody's well. Give me your perspective on technology, because I think that's the only way we're going to beat chronic disease, is to prevent it before it happens, to be proactive, obviously to make it very personalized. And then once we've got those 3 foundational pillars in place, then it's performance enhancing. So where are you sitting with technology?
Yeah, right on. Einstein said intellectuals solve problems, geniuses prevent them. And we want everybody to be a genius here, to be proactive, not reactive. It's the best way to live your life. Technology is amazing, and there'll be more technology coming out that really helps you fine tune your lifestyle to thrive. And a CGM is a great technology. A continuous glucose monitor is an amazing device. It's one of my favorite devices that you can use. Not because you're diabetic. I mean, for sure, if you're diabetic, get a CGM, but as a preventative measure, a CGM, for those who don't know, it's a continuous glucose monitor that you attach typically to the back of your tricep, but it could go at different areas of your body, and it stays there for 14 days, and it gives you a 24/7 look at your blood sugar levels. It shows you what stress does to your blood sugar, what different foods do it, what exercise does to it, poor sleep, and it holds you accountable because it's showing you exactly what's happening. And it allows you to adjust and make changes to fine tune your lifestyle to be proactive and preventative here versus reactive and just waiting for your annual blood test. So I love a continuous glucose monitor. I've used them on and off for years. I actually talk about them in the book. I also love sleep trackers and heart rate variability trackers. Like I have my Oura Ring, but there's Apple Watches and Whoop bands. There's different ones out there. I love looking at sleep. Sleep is foundational. Chapter 6 in Metabolic Freedom is all about sleep and circadian rhythm. And using a device that tracks your sleep, not just total sleep, but your total REM sleep, total deep sleep. How many times are you waking up throughout the night? Your resting heart rate, your heart rate variability. These are all really important metrics, because if you see things are not optimal, you could make some changes and you could see that data in real time. That next morning, you check your stats and you could see, oh, wow, the magnesium I took actually helped increase my deep sleep, or actually not eating but 5 hours before bed actually lowered my resting heart rate and raised my HRV, which is a good thing. You want a higher HRV and a lower resting heart rate. So I love these devices. I think it's cool. I would love for them to come out eventually with a continuous insulin monitor, if that could ever be a thing. I know there's a glucose monitor, but dude, that would be a game changer to look at your 24/7 insulin. That would be absolutely incredible.
Yeah, you're right. Have you had Dr. Robert Lufkin, who wrote The Lies I Taught at Medical School?
Yeah.
Had
He
him
endorsed the book too. He's awesome.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And I had him on, and he spoke about this company that has got, without a filament, is going to have fasting insulin 24/7. And it's going to
Oh, I didn't know
last like
that.
2 years without having to replace it continuously the whole time. So
What's the
chatting.
timeline on that?
I actually don't know. I was just overwhelmed by the technology because he was wearing a product on his arm called Rio, a different ring and a different CGM. And he said there's guys that are using waves, electrical fields and electromagnetic fields to look at hormones, testosterone levels, glucose levels, insulin levels, and you'll just keep it on without it actually puncturing the skin. So I thought that was
Wow.
interesting, but connect with them. But let's get back to your book. Why did you write the book? You've had 4 best-selling books. Keto Flex was your last one. Why did you write Metabolic Freedom?
I wanted to write a book for the masses. Keto Flex, my last book was a niche book. It was more about keto and fasting, which is great because I love keto and fasting. But I wanted to write a book that appealed to the masses. Metabolic Freedom is not a niche book. It's not a book about keto, although there's an entire chapter on keto. It's not a book about fasting, although there's an entire chapter on fasting. Those are just tools in the shed. I wanted to write a book that is relatable to somebody who's already in this space doing some of the things we're talking about here, or somebody who's brand new. I wanted to write that because we have metabolic diseases on the rise, not just in the US, not just in Africa, but all across the world. And God didn't design us for sickness. We were designed to thrive. We were made to thrive, to your podcast name. And I wanted to show a blueprint on how to do that. I wanted to share my story. I wanted to share my dad's story. And then I wanted to share the main causes towards metabolic disease. The first half of the book is all about the top causes that contribute to metabolic disease, because we first have to identify what's interfering. The second half of the book identifies the solutions, and then it's all wrapped together in a 30-day plan, chapter 12, to now implement what you've learned, because we could give people information, but information is potential power. When you apply it for a long period of time or enough time, then you actually get results. It's not just about learning, it's about applying. So I put together a 30-day plan so you could actually apply what you've just read. And there's a plan for beginners, it's a plan for those who are advanced. And I dedicated, like I mentioned, I dedicated the book to my dad who died from a metabolic disease in 2014. And I'm excited because the book is reaching the masses. The book just came out 9 days ago. It was published at the time of this recording. And we've already sold over 17,000 copies. And it's not about the copies sold, it's about the reach of 17,000 people getting the book. And then, as I just mentioned earlier, we hit this prestigious list, the New York Times bestseller list. There's over 33 million books out there right now. And only 10 books make that list, okay? We just made that list. And what's crazy is that list is a very mainstream list. They usually like people talking about conventional approaches. This book goes against the conventional norm. Yeah. It challenges that conventional way of thinking, and it entered the list. So now that means this conversation is being had at a mainstream level, and it's exactly why I wanted to write the book. And I'm so grateful that I see it out there into the world, and I'm so grateful I get to now share about this to the people of Africa too. So it's just super cool, man.
Brilliant. Well, congratulations. I know there's a lot of
Thank
work
you.
there. Probably no one knows what has gone into a book to write it over many years. So, yeah,
Yes.
and we're going to take it out and we'll hopefully get a signed copy from you and get on
Yes.
Instagram and pump it as much as we can. Because I think the key is you wrote a word that's very specific, freedom, and sort of give us the emotion and the reason why you use that word.
My last name, Azadi, translates to freedom in Farsi. My parents are from Iran, and the language they speak in Iran is Farsi. And I'm a first generation American, and that word freedom means a lot to me. And I think everybody desires freedom. They desire financial freedom, relationship freedom, time freedom, and especially health freedom, which is metabolic freedom. So it really resonated with me to have that in the title. Metabolic freedom is metabolic flexibility. Mark Sisson, who also endorsed the book, he has been a leader talking about metabolic freedom for so many years. And it's a spin-off of what he's taught us. Everybody wants to be able to eat food and use that food for energy and burn anything else as fat and feel great. They want to wake up in the morning having great restorative sleep and having peak energy levels throughout the entire day without having to rely on caffeine or stimulants. Like, that's metabolic freedom. Unfortunately, 93% of Americans are in a metabolic prison. That's a 2022 study showing that 93% of Americans are sugar burners. When you're stuck burning sugar and glucose, you're not metabolically free. You're metabolically handcuffed. You have to rely on food for a short-term energy boost. So you're eating and grazing and snacking and grazing throughout the day. Blood sugar spikes, insulin spikes. It's not a fun way to live. You have to. You're at the grocery store, or a different example. You're at the post office, and it's been 2 hours since your last meal, and you're hangry in line, and you're irritable. You're being rude to the people in line, the staff there, because you need food. You are a sugar burner. That's not the way we want to live. Somebody who's metabolically free could go hours, days, weeks in some cases without food and feel fine because you're using body fat for energy. So that's what metabolic freedom is, to be able to live your life and thrive, not worrying about when your next meal is coming.
Well said, and I think crucially important. I know you speak about mindset in the book. Just maybe set the foundation. We're not going to unpack every part of the book, but how important is mindset when adopting this road of metabolic freedom?
Mindset is the most important thing. It's 95% of the equation. In chapter 10 of Metabolic Freedom, it's all about how your thoughts influence your health or influence disease. It's my favorite chapter in the book. My next book will probably be all about chapter 10 will be an expanded version of it. I might call it Mental Freedom. I'm thinking about doing that. It's everything. Your thoughts, the thoughts you think. You have 60,000 thoughts a day. That's what psychiatrists estimate. And every thought is a frequency, according to Dr. Bruce Lipton and his research. He's a world-renowned cell biologist. Those thoughts are a frequency that communicate directly with your cells and communicate to your DNA nucleus. If it's a hateful thought, angry thought, resentful thought, bitter thought, that frequency sent to your DNA instantly produces inflammatory proteins, which damages your telomeres and shortens your telomeres and damages your DNA, which essentially shortens your lifespan. But if it's a loving thought, grateful thought, positive thought, abundant thought, same signal sent, but now your DNA produces anti-inflammatory proteins. Your telomeres are protected. Your DNA is protected, and you extend your lifespan with a single thought. And if you have 60,000 thoughts a day, which you do, that means you have 60,000 opportunities to put your body in an anti-inflammatory healing state. And that is the greatest biohack that you could ever learn. You could use your thoughts to heal your body. You could use your thoughts to reverse serious conditions, or you could use your thoughts to create disease and to prevent you from reversing your Hashimoto's or whatever it is. When you identify with your disease, you prevent yourself from overcoming that. So we want to detach from saying, I have a Hashimoto's. We want to use terms like, I had Hashimoto's.
Yeah.
I'm healing from Hashimoto's. But when you identify with it or the medication, like so many people do, it'll be hard to overcome that. So chapter 10 gets into that. It gets into the placebo effect, the nocebo effect. It gets into the self-image of how you view yourself at a subconscious level. It gets into my favorite part, which is vitamin G. I think it's the most important supplement in the world. And if you're not taking vitamin G, you are missing out, because vitamin G is anti-inflammatory, Steve. It helps with autoimmune, lowers blood pressure. UC Davis has a study I put in the book that showed those who take vitamin G have healthier blood pressure levels, healthier blood sugar levels. JAMA, Harvard published a study in JAMA in 2024. It was the most comprehensive study ever done on vitamin G. 49,275 nurses in this study, and it showed the nurses who intentionally took vitamin G every day had a 9% reduction in dying from all-cause mortality and a 15% reduction in dying from cardiovascular deaths versus the nurses who didn't take vitamin G. Another study on PubMed showed that caregivers live a very stressful life. It showed the caregivers who took vitamin G at night, when they measured their mitochondrial health through the process called MHI, Mitochondrial Health Index, when they measured their mitochondria the following morning, they had healthier mitochondria compared to the nurses who didn't take vitamin G. Now, your audience is listening and watching, and they're wondering, hey, is there a sponsor for vitamin G? Do you have an affiliate link and a coupon code? They might already be on Amazon right now looking for vitamin G. Well, vitamin G is vitamin gratitude. It's the feeling of gratitude, not the practice. I used to say the practice. Yeah. Gratitude is it's an emotional feeling, not an intellectual practice. So when you feel gratitude, you get all those benefits. All those studies are legitimate studies on gratitude. So I talk about that in the book, how it rewires your brain and so much more, man.
Sure. Well said, well articulated. I can see it come straight out of your heart. I think it's crucially important having kids, to try and imbue this vitamin G is so important, but it's so anti the system, so anti the world. We're already in survival mode, looking, oh, it's not enough. I better just take care of myself, self-preservation. My parents came from Cyprus. There was never enough. My dad ate meat once a month. He didn't choose growing up. So he
Wow.
came here, and that part of the brain kicks in. And when they see food, boom, just overeat. So it's just this amygdala hijack that happens from the wrong mindset and the wrong understanding that the frontal cortex needs to reprogram that subconscious mind so that every single day you're not fighting this fight to say, oh, well, am I having the pasta today? Am I not having the pasta today? Am I having the cereal today? Am I not having the cereal today? So maybe speak about the mindset affecting the subconscious mind, because we do speak about the energy equation that most people don't stick to a plan because they just run out of not time, but energy. The energy that it takes if you're trying to use this frontal cortex the whole time 6 months later, if you haven't set up those subconscious pathways and those habits, it just becomes too energy intensive.
Yeah, it does. It's spot on. The subconscious mind runs the show. That's where most of our results are coming from. And that was built through our childhood. Like you mentioned, your dad being in Cyprus, his childhood was very scarce, like my parents as well. And all of that goes into the subconscious mind, and it creates our self-image, our paradigm, and our habits and belief system. And now we're 20, 30, 57 years old, and we have the same subconscious mind that was built when we were a child. So we need a paradigm shift. We need to reprogram that subconscious mind, and we do that through the input that comes in. That's why listening to podcasts like this, reading books, surrounding yourself with people that are thinking differently, they're thinking in abundance, they're talking about health and quality of life, starts to reshape your subconscious mind and your thoughts and your belief system. One of the things I talk about in chapter 10 is the self-image of how you view yourself, which is deep in that subconscious level. And you can never outperform your self-image. And it was built through two ways, usually through an emotional. So there's two ways to change it. There's two ways that's built it. An emotional impact is the first way. An emotional impact would be the loss of a loved one, a near-death experience, a cancer diagnosis. That usually changes the way you think, your subconscious mind, and your behaviors. 9 times out of 10, that's a negative experience and it's unpredictable. So it's not the ideal route. The second option, which I believe is the better option, is the constant spaced repetition of that new idea. Right. So the what I talk about in the book, I give the example for weight loss, because that's my industry, the weight loss industry. And if somebody has a self-image of an overweight person, like I did, I was obese and overweight for 20 years. If your self-image is I'm an overweight, obese person, you could make a conscious decision to go on a diet or do keto or join a program, and you might make some progress. You might lose 5 pounds or 10 pounds the first month. But if you didn't work on the self-image and you're still identifying as an overweight person, you will find ways to sabotage yourself and find the weight that was lost. And that's because you didn't change the self-image. So what I recommend doing is writing down that new self-image. And I give an affirmation in chapter 10, and you write it down in the present tense. I'm so happy and grateful now that I'm at my perfect weight. I'm healthy. I'm happy. The perfect health I seek is now seeking me. I remove any interferences between us. That is an affirmation. You write it down. You read it every day in the morning, right before bed, throughout the day. And then you do that enough times. You just do it for 30 days, and you will do that enough times where now it has replaced that old self-image with that new idea, and now you become unstoppable. And you could take this idea and apply it to anything, your finances, your relationships, anything you're struggling with. You need to replace that old idea, that old identity in that subconscious mind with the new idea. And you can only do that through a constant spaced repetition or an emotional impact. And I prefer the constant spaced repetition. So I have my affirmations here, my goal cards here, and I read it every single day because I'm constantly working on my self-image even to this day.
Wow, well done. Walking the talk. And also big food and big pharma have got such strong stimuli, don't they? So you walk in, what you're seeing, what you're tasting, what you're hearing, what you're smelling, is coming against often of our own internal values, our own internal, value statements, and also our own internal affirmations. Because at the end of the day, big food doesn't want you to eat the nutrition that Ben Azadi is saying in Metabolic Freedom. They don't want you to be healthy, strong. They want you to be a resource for Big Pharma, to be a resource for their shareholders. So it does seem like it's a harder fight. I mean, I'm not sure if you know Jonathan Haidt and his anxious
Mhm.
generation, but it seems like it's just hitting, the stimulation on your younger generation is just at another level. How do you address sort of teenagers? And I mean, I've got a 9-year old, it's 10 times harder to raise her than my 21-year-old. He just turned 21. He's lean. He's half a biohacker, loves life, on the paddle court, on the pickle court. He doesn't, he's not thinking food 24/7, not struggling with a dopamine hit from food here, there. But it's just much, much harder now, 12 years later.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool that your 21-year-old's doing some cool things. Yeah, I don't have kids, so I can't speak from a place of experience, but I know that our environment determines those thoughts, the self-image, the belief system. Um, and we have such great resources out there. Like when I have children, I am going to have a monthly allowance where my kids, if they read a certain amount of pages each month or listen to a certain amount of books each month, they get a certain monthly allowance, right? An incentive to make some money while learning, right? So finding ways to ethically bribe them with the proper input. And I'm going to have them read and listen to Bob Proctor, who's, I think, the greatest resource out there. He's changed my life. I think if kids or anybody just listened to or read something from Bob Proctor every day for just, let's say 30 minutes, but every day. And you don't even have to be paying attention to it. As long as it's playing in the background or you're reading it, even if you don't know what you're reading, but if you do it every day, it will change the way you think. That goes into your subconscious mind. So it's all about the input. It's all about the environment. It's about, you mentioned the big pharma, it's all over television. Big pharma TV commercials are all over television here in the US. 75% of TV commercials in the US are funded by big pharma. And only 2 countries in the world allow big pharma to market directly to consumer, and that is the United States and New Zealand. That's it. And so that's an input that I would make sure I'm making sure my kids are not getting, which is the television and the social media feed. So it's difficult, I imagine, when you have kids, but it's also doable. And an easy thing that I would recommend is have them read or listen to or watch Bob Proctor videos on YouTube, 30 minutes every day, give them a monthly allowance, and I think that'll make a big difference.
Yeah, well said. Maybe I know you've written a lot about fasting, and I get this question from my ladies almost every single day, whether it's corporate or business owners or patients here. What about fasting?
Fasting is nature's reset button, and it's one of the quickest, most efficient ways to harness this innate intelligence, this inner doctor within the body. Fasting is like a chainsaw. A chainsaw is a very powerful tool. It'll get you incredible results if you've read the user manual. Same thing with fasting. Like it'll get you amazing results, powerful tool if you've read the user manual. But if you don't know what you're doing and just you're hearing about fasting and you're just skipping meals because you've heard it's a good thing, but you haven't prepped for it and built up that fasting muscle, it could be an issue. Fasting is a stress to the body. It doesn't mean it's bad. Stress is actually important when you adapt to it, but when you're not adapting to it, it's an issue. Women practice fasting differently than men, and menstruating women practice fasting differently than postmenopausal women, but they could all practice it. It's a valuable tool for both men and women of all walks of life. I've applied it to thousands and thousands of students of all different ages and different genders. So I love it as long as it's responsible fasting done the right way and you're balancing out fasting with feasting, not cheating, but feasting and eating high quality foods and high quality protein. I love fasting personally. It's one of my favorite tools in the shed.
Brilliantly said. You need the user manual when you've got a chainsaw in your hand. Make
Yes.
sure you've got a user manual, and maybe you've got a coach that you need by your side or
Yes.
a community to help you,
Yeah.
to start the right way. You start the wrong way, you can do damage long term. Saw a lot of ladies in my practice fast at night, hit their thyroids, they were over fasting, they had lean, bodies, these ectomorphs that were really tall athletes, wasn't good for their thyroid function. Let's talk about, I was a long distance runner and I was 66 kgs, didn't do a DEXA. DEXA scans only come in the last year to South Africa. but my numbers were going in the wrong direction. Liver enzymes, I'd run over 40,000 Ks on the road till
Wow.
2019. My medical mentor in Fort Myers said, listen, I know you love running. I know you love the day, Comrades Marathon, wonderful, but this is not going to be good for you. And so subsequently, I put on 10 kgs, mostly muscle. My body fat has gone up. How important is a DEXA scan with regards to body composition, number one? And then number two, if someone's wanting to put on muscle, is fasting a good idea?
Long distance running, especially to your point, over years, is really unhealthy, detrimental to the body. It's just such a chronic stress, and typically when you're doing long distance running, you're eating a lot of carbohydrates and sugar and quick digesting fuel. So I think that's what happened with you with your liver enzymes and all that, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not a fan of it. I'm a fan of like sprinting and burst training and sprints and walking, but not necessarily long distance running. I know that's difficult to hear because some people love their long distance running, and there's something to be said for that. If you love it, and I'm not telling you to give it up, but just you want to get a DEXA scan is a good idea, as you mentioned. I mean, a DEXA scan is looking at your body fat percentage, it's looking at your lean muscle mass, it's looking at visceral fat, which is the most important fat to measure, because we know that if the more visceral fat you have, which is organ fat, the fat around your liver, your pancreas, your heart, your kidneys, it applies pressure to these vital organs, and the more fat you have there, this white visceral fat, it decreases your lifespan. It increases chances of metabolic diseases. So a DEXA scan gives you an idea of how much visceral fat you have, how much subcutaneous fat you have. Subcutaneous fat is harmless. It's the fat around your arms, and that's harmless. But the visceral fat's an issue. So DEXA scan is great. I love it. It's a great thing to do. Gives you, of course, total weight, which is okay, but it gives you body fat percentage, which is an important marker, and then it also gives you an idea of muscle mass versus fat, and especially the different types of fat that you have. So I'm a fan of it. Now, fasting done right could be great for muscle building, because when you fast, within those first 24 hours, there's a human growth hormone increase. Studies show there's about a 2,000% increase in human growth hormone 24 hours into a fast in men, and a 1,300% increase in human growth hormone in women 24 hours in, because your body doesn't want to break down muscle. It's really sophisticated and wants to break down fat, not muscle. But if you do too much fasting, then there's this counter effect where you lose this, what's called your hermetic curve. So if you are fasting and balancing that out with getting enough protein and calories, great for muscle building. But if you're fasting and not feasting enough and getting protein, not great for muscle building. So it depends on how you do it.
Brilliant. So you got to watch your macros. And that's, I think, where you need a coach or a mentor or someone around you.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
we're coming to the end of the show. Any amazing biohacks that are your favorite? Maybe you want to mention them: infrared sauna, cold plunging, maybe some peptides that you found have been very beneficial. Even looking at maybe someone, we try and sort of deconstruct this in Africa to make it simple. Just giving someone a pedometer, getting to
Yeah.
try and, closer to 10,000 steps, trying to get maximum time in the sun, which is fundamentally important. But maybe give us your sort of favorite technology tools that you have found beneficial for metabolism.
Yeah, it's so many cool things out there that are paid biohacks, free biohacks. Chapter 11 of Metabolic Freedom takes a deep dive into this. Let's discuss paid, and then I'll discuss free biohacks. So my favorite paid biohacks, you mentioned one of them, infrared sauna. Sauna in general, it could be dry sauna, steam sauna, but I personally have an infrared sauna. I love my infrared sauna. I mean, when you go and get into a sauna, you create this vasodilation where your blood vessels open up because nitric oxide increases, which is a very important molecule in your body. And when your blood vessels open up, your body, your metabolism is able to deliver blood, oxygen, nutrients to your tissues for healing more efficiently. It lowers blood pressure. All great things happen. It activates heat shock proteins. It supports the mitochondria. It activates autophagy, the cellular cleanup process. And there's amazing studies showing how continuous sauna use dramatically decreases your chance of dying from cardiovascular disease, which is the number one killer in the US and many countries out there. So I love that. I also love cold plunging, not as much as the sauna. And I also have a plunge here. A cold plunge does the opposite of a sauna. It creates vasoconstriction short term, where your blood vessels narrow, and it activates cold shock proteins. It activates, there's a dopamine surge after you get out of the cold plunge. There's also a discipline that transfers to other areas of life when you get in to that cold exposure. Some amazing things happen when you get into this cold plunge because your body goes through this vascular massage. It increases your immune system, testosterone levels when you do the right dosage of it. So I love cold plunge. And then I love red light therapy. I know I mentioned infrared, which has red light, but I love red light panels. I have a panel here. I use red light therapy a lot. Photobiomodulation helps with energy production, collagen production, mitochondrial function, soreness and aches. I love red light therapy. So these are all paid biohacks. The free ones, like you mentioned, are getting steps each day, getting outside and grounding, putting your feet on earth, getting sunshine. These are all amazing things you can do that are free. You could do right away, and they all have benefits. They all lower inflammation, support your mitochondria, help with fat loss. So there's so many things we can do, and it's really exciting time for us, Steve.
Brilliant. Just the last message of hope to people listening out there. Been in practice so long, the last 5 years, I've never seen people so depressed. Mental health has plummeted. For the first time, I've seen the most positive people just say, a friend of mine, 37 years old, he had a stroke and died. 45-year-old sister-in-law got cancer. I've
Mm.
never seen the plethora of chronic disease to this degree. And so just a message of hope out there because a lot of people are like, I just can't beat the system. Don't have the funds. I don't have the resources. And it just takes too much energy to try and just make month end, to raise my kids, to look after my parents. South Africa, we had electricity problems. We never had water for 3 days recently. I mean, Americans and the rest of the world just don't have power, and you got solar, and the solar is a problem, and there's no water. It adds another level of stress and dynamic. But you're a man who obviously uses affirmations, who sees a brighter, better future and hope. And many times I do this podcast because there's people like yourself and the Robert Lufkins of the world and that really can inspire hope. So maybe just, dig a little in your heart there because I think you're a man who shares his heart on his sleeve. And that's a powerful message. And just want to say to you, Ben, don't ever lose that. It's so authentic and your brand and you have grown, but I see you as not even trying to build a brand. You're not even trying to grow. You're just trying to help people just out of the pain that you went through with your generations and your family.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Yeah, that's what it's about. As you mentioned, so many people are hurting, they're suffering, they're praying for answers. They think their body is broken. I would say your body is not broken. God has built your body to be self-healing. Everything you need to heal is within. It's not a pharmaceutical, it's not a shot, it's not even a supplement. It's within you. It's this inner physician that God put within all of your cells. And I've been saying, you are a masterpiece because you are a piece of the master. And if you just identify what is interfering with your body, remove the interference and your body will heal itself. And take it one thing at a time, one step at a time, get some momentum. It doesn't have to be expensive. I know I mentioned some biohacks like sauna and cold plunge, and those are add-ons. They're not requirements, right? Getting quality sleep, getting outside in nature, practicing gratitude, feeling gratitude, having community, doing things you enjoy, hobbies. All of these are healing to the body. And these are free things that you can do. And the more of them that you do, the more your body is going to heal. And never never forget that even if you're 70 years old or 50 years old or 90 years old, your body can heal itself. You just have to remove the interference. It will heal itself. Don't give up hope. There's something incredible inside of your body right now that is eager to heal. And your symptoms are not your problem. They are a result of your problem. You should be grateful for your symptoms and identify what is interfering. As long as you go down that path of what is interfering and you start removing one thing, two things, three things, the body will continuously heal itself. Start with the free stuff and then go from there.
Oh, fantastic. Almost the spiritual first, then the mindset. We're a part of the Grandmaster. And so
Yes.
thank you so much. Declare favor and blessing over you. I've just got one more request. I've got a family member. You've changed his life. He's been watching you for a long time. You've changed his mom's life. His name is Costa Martinez. If you could just give him a shout out, that would be amazing.
Yeah, Costa Martinez.
Yeah.
Costa. That is awesome. I'm grateful that I was able to impact you. I didn't do anything, my friend. It was all you. Maybe I inspired you, but you took the action. So congrats to you and your family. I'm really grateful to play a part in your healing journey, and I'm going to continue rooting for you, Costa, and your entire family.